Our speaker this morning, Mitch James, as most of you know, is a longtime member of the congregation. His wife, Coriel, has shared many a song with us. And, of course, their children, Morgan and Lavender, always spice things up. Mitch served for the last 2 years as our congregational treasurer and has spoken here several times on various subjects. So this morning, I'll give you Mitch James.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Joanne, for the music. Thank you, Coriel, for the children's song. Thank you for the great turnout. I never know what to expect when I'm speaking based on the first few times. I can't see when glasses are on, but need them to read. So see all the heavy hitters out here today, all the older members of the, not older members, but longtime standing members of the church. So it's good to see everybody here. So I was going to start with a joke. Besides thinking that based on the turnout, I should put atheist in the title of all my sermons. So the joke is I was supposed to have Thanksgiving with my Unitarian Universalist relatives, but I couldn't take it. I left early. I didn't mind having to join the committee for the implementation of roasted foodstuffs. I didn't mind deciding not to have turkey so we could protest the poor working conditions of the poultry workers. But after 5 hours of sitting in a circle, trying to reach a consensus on how to make stuffing for the turkey we weren't going to have, I gave up and went to McDonald's. Oh, that was all appropriate. We're all heretics in this room, at least according to sociologist Peter Berger. Sociologist Peter Berger, who thinks we're all heretics just by living in a pluralistic society. The English word heresy comes from the Greek verb, which means to choose. In a society as diverse as our own, none of us are stuck with the religion we were raised in. Unlike most humans, for most of history, we have real alternatives. That's why to Berger, we all face what we call the heretical imperative. No one can avoid choosing their religious identity for themselves. This freedom comes with a tremendous responsibility. Nothing shapes who we are and what we value more than our convictions regarding ultimate reality. I am here to represent people who do not worship any gods. People who choose life without belief in the supernatural. Now we're called by many names: agnostics, atheists, freethinkers, skeptics, secular humanists. I'm comfortable with any of these labels, but please do not call me an unbeliever. If you ask, you'll find there are many things I believe in, and I suspect you probably share some of those beliefs. I believe through reason, observation, and experiment, we limited human beings can find some measure of understanding in this world. I believe through the pursuit of truth and the cultivation of virtue are the most noble of human aspirations. I believe patriarchy, authoritism, and fundamentalism are the greatest threats to human progress. I believe that the survival of the human species depends on education and empowerment of women worldwide. I believe that friendship is what makes life bearable. We should choose our friends carefully, but once chosen, we should give ourselves to them fully. I believe in many things, and these beliefs help me make sense of my world. They inform my goals. They direct my actions. I turn to them in times of hardship and uncertainty because they remind me of who I am and the purpose I have chosen for my life. It's not a lack of belief which earns me and my fellow atheists that label unbeliever. It's our lack of faith in the supernatural. The vast majority of people living on this planet believe in a God or some other higher reality that transcends the physical world. Having faith seems as ordinary a human activity as breathing. It's only natural to regard the relatively few who reject the supernatural with suspicion. Now, why haven't they signed on to faith? The answer that we must return to the heretical imperative I spoke about earlier. Faced with so many options, how do we choose? By the authority of a tradition or scriptures? Whose tradition? Which scriptures? Christians and Muslims both take their scriptures to be the Word of God, but the Bible and the Quran contradict on numerous and essential points of doctrine. By what criteria can we decide which scriptures are truly inspired by God and which are merely the invention of human beings? What about miracles? Both Hindus and Catholics point to supposed miraculous events and supernatural signs as proof of their claims. On what ground do we affirm Catholic miracles yet deny Hindu miracles? What about personal religious experience? What about the power of religion to transform lives? Many Christians insist they know their faith is true because they can feel God's presence. They have direct knowledge of God through inner witness of the Spirit. But Muslims also feel the divine peace that comes with submission to Allah. And Zen Buddhists catch a direct glimpse of enlightenment through the experience of Satori. Every one of these religions can point to people who've turned away from violence or substance abuse through redemptive power of their faith. On what basis other than prejudice or an arbitrary preference to my own tradition do I take the experience of Christians seriously and simply dismiss the experience of Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists? Perhaps in the end it all boils down to faith. Perhaps you must first believe, and then you will see the truth. What help is that? Centuries ago, Julius Caesar observed, "Men are generally ready to believe what they wish to be true." Knowing this, we should all be more hesitant to simply commit to believing something without evidence. Now, atheists believe in many things, but we do not accept the authority of tradition or scriptures. We do not trust in the words of self-styled prophets or the inner conviction of the Spirit. We put little stock in miraculous visions or personal experiences of the divine because we reason that these methods cannot be reliable guides to truth if they lead to such radically divergent views on reality. For this we are often accused of arrogance. After all, what could be more audacious than to trust one's own fallible judgment over the eternal truths of the Creator? I believe this skepticism is rooted in a profound humility. It comes from a deep appreciation of human fallibility, of how easily we are taken in by self-conscious fantasies. It comes from a rare willingness to be self-critical, to root out the errors and delusion in one's own thought and hope of seeing the world clearly. Consider this quote from the Irish feminist and freethinker Iris Murdoch. "By opening our eyes, we do not necessarily see what confronts us. We are anxiety-ridden animals. Our minds are continuously active, fabricating an anxious, usually self-preoccupied, often falsifying veil which partially conceals the world. Our fantasies and reveries are not trivial and unimportant. They are profound, connected with our energies and our ability to choose and act. If quality of consciousness matters, then anything which alters consciousness in the direction of or unselfishness, objectivity, and realism is to be connected with virtue." And Miss Murdoch was not the first to realize that the pursuit of truth may even ask more of our character than it does our intellect. It requires not only humility, but the openness to consider contrary viewpoints, the integrity to judge one's own beliefs and the beliefs of others by the same standards, the patience to suspend judgment until the evidence is in, the persistence to think through difficult problems, the courage to follow the evidence wherever it leads, and the flexibility to change one's beliefs should they be cast into doubt by new evidence. "Believe it, my good friend," wrote John Locke in a letter to Anthony Collins, "to love truth for truth's sake is the principal part of human perfection in this world and the seed plot of all other virtues." So if we love truth for truth's sake, if we wish to push our consciousness in the direction of unselfishness, objectivity, and realism, then how should we proceed? Since we know our hopes and intuitions so often lead us astray, since we know our reason is so often in error and we need some sort of external check on our beliefs, we need an impartial source against which we can test our theories so that we can discover when we're wrong. No holy book can meet this challenge, but the book of nature can. Nature cares not for our feelings. She has no interest in confirming our prejudice or affirming our delusions. Claims that require the authority of a guru, mystical insight, or the eyes of faith are not by their very nature undemocratic. They are only for the elect. But nature has no elect. She will give her secrets to anyone, regardless of race, gender, or circumstances of birth. Nature never asks us to take things on faith. She implores us to look beyond mere appearances, to investigate deeply into her inner workings and see the truth for ourselves. So to the degree that it is possible, we should limit our beliefs to what we can observe in the natural world or what we can rationally infer from those observations. We should all adopt the attitude of that annoying math teacher who told you, don't just give me the answers, show your work. Now, of course, we only see nature through human eyes. So again, we must be humble. We should not pretend that we can understand nature's ways without making assumptions or forming theories. Fine, but let them be cautious. Make sure they are logically sound. Check that they cohere with previously discovered knowledge, and expect them to lead to new insight and discoveries. And when they do not discard them and start all over again. Now, I want to be careful here and not be misunderstood. I'm not proposing that truth be so narrowly defined as to only include scientific knowledge. I'm not denying the existence of an intrinsic truth, nor am I denying the importance of socially constructed systems of meaning of human subjectivity. Philosophy, art, personal introspection are all essential to rich understanding of what it means to be human. But when it comes to reality, that which exists prior to and independent of ourselves, we should limit our claims to those that can be tested again against the natural world. Some might object, as the eminent scientist and philosopher William James did, that if we limit our understanding this way, won't we run the risk of missing out on profound, ineffable, even life-altering truths? Yes, we might. But that's the price of getting things right. Or as Nelson Goodman put it, you may decry some of these scruples and protest that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in my philosophy. Perhaps I'm concerned rather than there should not be more things dreamt of in my philosophy than there are in heaven or earth. More often the objection we hear is that without the supernatural, the universe is devoid of wonder, hope, meaning, purpose. Don't you long to be part of something larger than yourself? Don't you want your life to be significant? I never know how I should answer these questions. On the one hand, I'm eager to affirm that naturalism presents us with a world more beautiful and mysterious than you'll find in any religion. On the other hand, a world without the supernatural really does confront us with disturbing possibilities, and I feel we ought to confront these head on instead of grasping for consolations. So let's start with the affirmative side first. In the beginning, all the atoms that make up your body, I thought you were going to see it go in a different direction. All the atoms that make up your body were once in the heart of a star. Inside the solar furnace, nuclei of hydrogen atoms fused to make the heavier elements required for life. And when that star died, those elements were released into the open vastness of space. Over time, gravity brought those elements together again to form new stars and planets. On at least one of those planets, a handful of those atoms began to do something quite amazing. By no other force than by the laws of physics, they formed long chains of macromolecules, determined by their chemistry to make crude copies of themselves. The first cells formed and began to divide. Some cells stuck together after dividing and began to differentiate their functions, leading to the first multicellular organisms. Some evolved limbs and antennae, patches of cells sensitive to heat and pressure. Suddenly, the universe could feel. Some evolved cells which could detect light and the direction of its source. Some even had primitive lenses that could focus that light, and then suddenly the universe could see. Some of these organisms evolved tiny models of reality within their nervous systems, internal representations of their own body and the outside world. And then suddenly, the universe could experience. It could even predict events, and to even some degree, control its responses. Some of these organisms evolved the ability to use concepts and language, and suddenly, the universe could communicate. It looked upon itself with wonder and asks, "Who am I?" So to the person who says, "But I want to be part of something larger than myself," I say, you might know the science, but somehow you fail to comprehend what you truly are. You are the latest stage in a complex chemical reaction that's been taking place for billions of years. There's an unbroken chain of heredity that unites you to every living thing on the planet, and even the very stars themselves. You are not just a collection of atoms. You are atoms with awareness. You are not just matter. You are matter with meaning. As Carl Sagan so simply put it, you are a way for the universe to know itself. What have you ever been a part of that is that grand? But in the scope of eternity, aren't we all just insignificant specks of dust? Don't for a second believe that just because you are small and your time here is short, that somehow you are insignificant. That star of ours shining somewhere beyond the clouds, that one's been around for a couple billion years before you were born or I, and will remain for millions after we're gone. Does it dream? Does it hope? Does it love? Does it wake up every morning and face the world and try to make something of itself? Does it feel a single thing? What about the Milky Way? What about all the colossal superclusters of galaxies that make up the universe? Of course not. Without life, there is no harm, there is no gain, there is no state of affairs preferable to any other. There can be no such thing as value. But introduce the subject of experience, and everything changes. Suddenly value, meaning, and purpose make sense. So I'm afraid that we've been looking to the sky for our marching orders for so long that we've gotten things turned around. You depend on that star for survival, but it depends on you for significance. If that star on this planet is important at all, it is important because it gives life to you. This entire cosmos can only be made significant through our story, along with the story of all other sentient beings that experience life within it. What an awesome privilege that is. So how do you think we're doing on that business of making our universe significant? In its final draft, how do you think the story will read? Will it be a good book? Will humanity's chapter be one of its high points? Or will it be one long miserable cautionary tale? Think about that question, and you'll catch a sense of the awesome burden facing those who wish to live ethically in a natural world. You see, if there is no God, then our story comes with no guarantee of a happy conclusion. Only humanity can solve its own problems, and it's not clear that we're up to that task. I believe humanism also has its own kind of irrational faith. Since the time of Europe's own so-called Enlightenment, humanists have needed to cast off Christian faith in the coming kingdom of heaven and replace it with a secular faith in the triumph of reason over superstition and the inevitable march of progress that will follow in its wake. Yes, humankind has made incredible advancements in our understanding. We've cured diseases, tripled our life expectancy, and brought the human community closer than ever through the power of technology. For what we deserve to be proud, for that we deserve to be proud. But do we dare forget that we only narrowly avoided annihilating the entire human race with nuclear weapons, and the next time we may not be so lucky? How many cultures have been erased? How many native peoples displaced or worse eradicated? And that's only the human toll that we've racked up through these centuries of progress. We are now, everyone in this room, contributing to the largest mass extinction of species in human history. Genocides upon genocides are happening each day. We're changing the climate. And although the science is sound, most of us are enamored with a way of life to seek any significant change. It's getting difficult for any caring, sensitive person to continue reading a story when each page is saturated with violence, greed, hatred, and anguish, especially if you suspect, as I do, that no savior will come down to rescue us. Still, though it might be painful, don't close that book before it's finished. Look closely and you'll find that this dark chapter also contains scores of characters who stand apart from the ugliness and bring real beauty to these pages. From tiny gestures of kindness to heroic acts of compassion, they redeem our narrative, or at least make the very reading more bearable. Right now, you're writing your own contribution to this chapter. Will your story inspire like theirs? Now, I'd like to end with a story that inspires me. This story comes from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Perhaps an odd choice in an atheist sermon, but this really captures for me the essence of secular humanism. Emperor Nero had a twisted sense of humor. He used to write plays where the characters perform a wide range of humiliating and degrading tasks. And then he would cast prominent members from Roman society in those roles and have them perform before a large audience. Anyone who refused to play Nero's sick game was promptly executed. The Roman historian Florus and the Stoic philosopher Agrippinus were both summoned by Nero to act in a play. True to his philosophy, the Stoic had no intention of taking part of this debasement, but Florus protested. If I refuse to participate in Nero's festival, he will kill me. I still refuse, said the Stoic. But you go ahead and participate. Why? Asked Florus. Because you think of yourself as no more than a single thread in the robe, whose duty is to conform to the mass of people. Just a single white thread has no wish to clash with the remainder of the garment. But I aspire to be the purple stripe. That is the garment's brilliant hem. However small part it may be, it can still manage to make the garment as a whole attractive. Don't tell me to be like the rest, because in that case, I cannot be the purple stripe. Now, optimism is not always a rational attitude, but hope is. Hope doesn't have to delude us about our chances when encouraging us to press on. I hope that when all is said and done, humanity's chapter in life story will be a bright one. But even if it is not, I will still stand in admiration of those who did not accept easy answers or bow to received wisdom, people who pursued people who pursued truth for its own sake, who did good not out of any expectation of divine reward or fear of punishment, but because they love life and they wish to see it thrive. I think that is what humanism is really about. It's finding the courage to stand apart and say, don't tell me to be like the rest. I choose to live by reason instead of faith. I choose to serve all sentient life, not just the elect. I choose to press on instead of waiting for a miracle, and because I know and because I believe that is how I make my life and the universe of which I am part of significant. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mitch. I also should have pointed out that Mitch and Coriel videotape the service every Sunday and then post it to both our church website and to YouTube, so you can always catch it there. And then today, of course, when I walked in here, the chairs were just in the process of being set up again by Mitch and Coriel and Morgan and several other people in the congregation. So thank you for all of your hard work. At this time, please rise as you're willing and able and join in our closing hymn, We Would Be One, number 318. As we extinguish our chalice, please join me in reading our mission statement as a demonstration of our fellowship, our support for one another, and our commitment to the wider community. This church provides a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for our lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. Thank you to our musician, Joanne Cleland, to Barry Linden for our chalice lighting, to our greeters, Dorothy Ward and Joy Boren, and to all others who are helping today. including those who helped to reset the chairs. And of course to Mitch James, who will now provide us, no, I will provide the closing words, that's right. Followed by a postlude from Joe. This is a meditation by David Breeden. We are not angels fallen. We are apes rising. We are not descended to violence, but rising to peace. We are not fallen. We are not angels. We are apes rising when we rise. We are not fallen except in choosing not to rise.